of OmniU Presents the H3O Art of Life show, and I am so thrilled today. I just can't tell you. The name of this show is Once Upon a Way Back Time, and we're going way back to some of our traditions in this country and before. And I have with me in the studio the vice president, actually, of the Needles and Pens Quilters Guild. And I want to introduce Margaret Robinson before I say a little bit more about the show. Hello.
Hello, Dr. Peace.
How are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm fine. I'm
Good.
surrounded by all this beauty, and I want to tell the viewers that just recently Needles and Pens had one of their annual shows, and I came to it. It was the first time I ever came, and when I walked into that room, and so, in fact, when I walked into the facility and saw the ones that were out in front that were there for auction.
Times of the year.
You mean you make quilted items and
items,
dolls such as these?
Not dolls. This is
Not
for
dolls.
the infants.
Okay.
For the infants.
All right.
If the infant is a premature baby, a premature size cat, it can be quilted, sewn, knitted, or crocheted.
Okay.
And blankets.
All right.
And that's our community project.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, that's a wonderful thing. So you actually work individually. You work in your own home. You do your quilting. When do you show your work
At
to
the
your
Guild.
members?
Well, back to the community project.
Okay.
We have a committee, community service, and they give us suggestions. And this year was to make baby caps and baby blankets.
Okay.
As I said, sewn, quilted, crocheted, knitted.
Okay.
And we take them over, I say about 6 times a year, to Cook County or the Stroger Hospital.
Okay.
And at the Guild meeting, we go through our business, and then we have show and tell. And this is what we really come to see. What has a member done? And they usually come out with some of the prettiest quilts, as you saw at the show.
Of course.
Show and tell.
All right.
And oftentimes they say how they did it, and how or where or who quilted it. And it's just a lot of fun because you get ideas. You get ideas.
It's wonderful. You know, these quilts are works of art. They're
Yes,
absolutely every
indeed.
bit
Yes, indeed.
as much art as sculpture and painting.
As the masters. These are masters of quilting.
That's right. And I'm wondering what, you know, from where do you get your ideas?
They just come to the people. This universe is full of ideas, and these are women and even young people who quilt. And the ideas are just there. They take them, and as you have seen some of the quilts tonight, you said, where did the ideas come from? From everywhere.
But you know, if we can look around, if we have a camera that can look around at some of the quilts, because the audience will be seeing the quilts for a good while we have some stories told in front of those quilts. Right now you're looking at the doll that I'm holding, and I guess while I have a camera looking at the dolls, I'll just show you these dolls. Who makes these dolls?
I can't remember her name right now. We have so many women who are not only quilting, but sewing, doll making, sculpturing.
Is there someone in the audience who can tell us who makes the dolls?
Oh,
Susie Roach
okay,
makes the
Susie
dolls.
Roach.
Okay, so Susie Roach makes the dolls, and I have 5 examples of her work, and I also have seen clothing that Susie makes. And these dolls don't want to stand up, so I'm not going to let them fall down. I'm just going to lie them down, because they would stand up on a flat surface, but because this surface has a quilt piece on it, they're not willing to stand on that surface. But I want to show each one of these dolls in some detail, if I may. Thank you so much, Calvin. Calvin is on that camera cooperating with me as I think of things I want to do. And I want to show Susie Roach's dolls. I think they are just excellent. And there's one more that I need to show. And if you can hand it to me. Okay. And I'll show it. And this one, okay, again by Susie Roach. Susie Roach does a lot of things. She does quilts, she does the dolls, she does clothing, which I tried to convince her she should sell to me but she
Well,
she
try
wasn't
to
willing.
talk to her some more. Maybe she'll
Talk to her some
yeah,
more,
maybe
okay. Maybe I need to talk to some of the other quilters some more to
Yes.
try to see if I can just buy a quilt. And
Yes.
But you know, actually, I do have a quilt,
Okay.
and my niece is responsible for my having it. Actually, a friend of mine made the pieces together.
Yes.
But that was what she did. She just did that. And
you know how old the quilt is?
no, but then I gave it to Vicki. And when I got it back, it had all the things a quilt is supposed to have. What
I
are the
remember
things?
that quilt. I remember Vicki bringing that in.
Okay,
yes.
what are the steps? First of all, I know ideas abound everywhere, but these quilts look very well planned. They look very well designed. You know what the shape is gonna be. You know what you're gonna put in various spaces. So, do you draw a plan first?
All right. Some people have their original plans.
Uh-huh.
Some people use plans or patterns out of books.
Okay.
What has revolutionized quilting in the last 10 to 15 years is the rotary cutter as well as the cutting board.
All right.
Before, you had to cut each pattern by hand.
Okay.
The wheel, which looks like a pizza cutter, has just revolutionized.
Okay.
Therefore, you can cut in strips,
Okay.
and those strips can be made into almost any shape you want to.
Okay.
Curved shapes,
Okay.
square shapes, any shape you can think of.
Okay.
And they take that, such as this pattern.
Uh-huh.
She used print, a smaller print, abstract prints,
Okay.
and she knew how she was going to have it laid out.
Okay.
Each time she cut a different particular piece of fabric
Okay.
or material.
Okay.
And we used 100% cotton. That is the better material to use to do quilting.
Okay.
Although people use whatever is necessary.
And you can stitch these by machine or by hand?
You can stitch them by machine or by hand. I bought a double wedding ring that was stitched by one of our men quilters, pieced by hand and stitched by hand.
Are you telling me that there are men who quilt?
We have, I do believe this is one of the men. He made this quilt. It is in a circular fashion, and it is machine quilted. Yes.
Why do we associate quilting with women?
Because we just sort of see pictures of the quilting bees, and there were women all around, and the men were probably somewhere in the background, or we just think of that. But men, women, as well as children, have terrific ideas for quilting.
Now that's a thought. Children quilting.
Children quilt, yes.
Has anybody gone into the schools or any place and tried to introduce?
A couple of years ago, we went to school, and we worked with about 6 youngsters. And we had them to draw a picture. We pressed it onto a sticky substance that pressed onto the fabric, and there it was.
Okay.
And it took about 18 weeks to make this quilt.
Okay.
And it was a huge quilt when we finished.
All right.
But more and more people are interested in quilting. You can go into school supply stores and find books on quilting. You can look on television, public access, public TV, and cable television. They have terrific programs. Plus there are conventions, classes, and guilds such as ours. Sometimes we'll have someone to come in and demonstrate a particular lesson, or we'll have a lesson after our guild meeting. And guest quilters come in, they give workshops. Many ways to share your ideas,
All right.
plus video.
You mentioned books, so I just want to show up a few of the titles that you brought along with you. This one is called A Communion of the Spirits.
Yes, our quilt guild is featured in this book. It's by Roland Freeman, who went across America and featured African-American quilters.
All right.
Older women, middle-aged women, and younger women. And they showed their quilts that they made with patterns and without patterns.
Okay. And then this book, African Accents?
African Accents shows what you can do with African-inspired material to decorate your home.
Okay. And then I have, I think, a couple of others. There's one that I must get. It's called Hidden in Plain View.
Hidden in Plain View. That's the oral tradition of quilting.
Right.
On that particular plantation, quilts meant something to the slaves. The masters looked at them as just a piece of work. The slaves knew that these quilts meant
they were maps.
That they were maps to freedom, and that if you, on your way to freedom, if you saw them, you knew it was a safe house. Or if you saw something in that quilt, it was not a safe house, and you had to. It was not so much as not a safe house for them, but it was not safe for the slaves to be in that particular area until they got to freedom.
And this one is signs
and symbols, African images in African American quilts, and they show many. They feature some of African American women quilters.
And the Stitch from the Soul.
Stitch from the Soul is a classic that has been reissued, just been reissued by Gladys Marie Fry. She's an expert on slave quilts from antebellum South. And in that book, there are some surviving slave quilts from over 150 years ago. So that is a nice, just a few of the books that are out. And they are coming out more and more on African American quilting.
I imagine, I would feel that this has a therapeutic value.
Yes.
That quilting must be very calming.
Yes, we had a woman who had a health challenge, and she made about a 2,000-piece quilt that she not only cut by hand, but she quilted. And she mentioned how soothing and comforting it was. And we just marveled at it. We just marveled. Because when you work with your hands, that is soothing and comforting and less stressful.
Sure beats working with a computer.
Yes, it definitely makes with your
you won't get carpal tunnel syndrome
yes.
doing quilts.
Yes.
And your president is Cheryl
Talbert.
And who are some of your other officers?
My name is Margaret Rose Robinson. I'm the vice president. Dolores Witherspoon is our treasurer, and Mary Gomberg is our secretary.
All right, and you have a historian?
Our historian's name is Otis Grove.
What is his function? What does a historian do?
It is to gather the information that we've had for the last 10 years, just put them in a book. He's even compiled an exhibit for us to see. And it starts out, and it exhibits such as from our shows. This year we had our 10th anniversary. We have our shows every other year. Our next show will be in the 3rd week of October 2004.
All right.
Okay.
And I will be there.
Wonderful.
And
wonderful.
this time I'm bringing the crew with me.
Wonderful.
Because
wonderful.
we have quite a sample of what you've brought today.
Yes.
But there was a lot of other things that I certainly want to see. Well, they may not even be available by the next time because they may have been sold.
Well, maybe they will be and maybe they won't. But when you come, you will see just another terrific example of creativity.
How long does it take to do something show-worthy? Were I to join a Quilters Guild, say,
okay, well...
would I be ready in 2 years?
Yes, you would be. I showed my first quilt. Sort of looks like my first quilt, but I showed it anyway. Since you have a 2-year time span, a good year would work. Just learn how to cut out your squares, square them up. That's very important. Otherwise, your quilt will be lopsided.
Okay.
Sewing it, and then you make the decision as if you want to hand quilt it, or machine quilt it, or send it out to be hand quilted or machine quilted.
And then there are all the other things like the backing and the border.
The boarding, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, well, I think this is just so exciting. Now we want to go and look at some of the quilts, and we also want to hear some of our stories.
Okay, well, thank you for coming out to our show.
Well, thank you for having your show, and I'm so very thankful to my niece, Vicki Hill Brooks, who made me aware of the Quilters Guild by joining it.
Yes, you did.
And so I knew of her interest in quilting, and that's why I was able to turn
Well,
to
I
her.
remember that quilt because it had a lot of polyester in it. But whoever did it, when you first saw it, it was a before, but at the finished product was just a beautiful quilt.
You should see it.
It's
Yes,
a
well, this
beautiful
lady
quilt.
was, her name is Ethel McIntosh. I guess she was just doing something to pass the time.
Yes,
And one day she just handed it over to me. And of course, I didn't know what to do, you know, but I knew I had a niece who was a quilter.
Well, I'm glad you gave the quilt to her.
I'm glad I did too, because it's a very beautiful piece. And thank you so much, Margaret Robinson.
Thank you, Dr.
And thank you for the Needles and Pins Quilters
Excuse me,
Guild.
it's needles and threads.
Needles and threads. You know what? I can show you that I got a fax that says needles and pins on it. I don't know if I misread it, but I want to apologize.
Oh, that's okay.
Because I'm sure that showed up somewhere while we were talking.
Okay.
Okay, but it's Needles and Threads.
Needles and Threads Quilters Guild of Chicago.
Okay. You're planning on having branches? Well, you said
no.
of Chicago.
Well, yes, we do have a branch on the west side.
Okay.
One of our quilters, Patricia Williams, better known as Trish Williams.
Oh, yes. I've interviewed Trish when she was at the Raw art exhibit.
Okay.
Yes, okay. All right. Well, let's fade to black now.
Okay.
And let's go see what we can see and hear what we can hear. Thank you again.
Well, enjoy. Enjoy.
All right. I'm back and I'm proud. I'm so proud of this show tonight. I'm telling you, viewers, you are in for such a treat because we've got these beautiful quilts here, and we also have some beautiful storytellers, and we're going to interview some of our storytellers now, and then we're going to let you see what they do. And I want to introduce someone that has appeared on the show before when it had another name. It was called The I Can Show. And now we're called OmniU Presents the H3O Art of Life Show. And this is Emily Hooper Lansana, who was Emily Hooper then. And now she's a married lady and has been out of state and back now to spend some time with us, hopefully to stay.
Yes.
How are you?
Very well, thank you.
Very well. I'm so glad to see you again.
It's wonderful to be back and wonderful to see you.
Okay, and then of course we have Judith Heineman. And they are preparing for a telebration, which is a celebration of stories. This is the Chicago Storytellers Guild, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and Judith, you are the founder, the what?
Right, I'm a co-founder of the Guild and producer of Telebration, and actually brought Telebration to Chicago, within the Chicago city limits, for the first time 6 years ago. And we're just about to celebrate our 6th anniversary.
Okay, so what's Telebration going to offer for us?
Well, what Telebration is part of a worldwide, simultaneous celebration of stories that was started about 15 years ago by some people in Connecticut. And that same weekend, the weekend before Thanksgiving, in over 300 sites in the United States and 9 countries in the world, people are hosting storytelling events to celebrate the spoken word and celebrate stories.
Isn't that wonderful?
It is.
How did you happen to become a co-founder of this this event, I guess?
It's actually a funny story. There's another wonderful storyteller whose name is David Hunt, and I'm not sure if you know who he is. And he was a neighbor of mine, and he was going to Jonesboro, Tennessee, where the National Storytelling Festival takes place every October, and where I just was this October. And 10,000 people come to this historic town for 3 days to listen to stories, wonderful storytellers from all backgrounds and ethnic diversities and styles and musicians. And David couldn't go, and he had an extra ticket. And I had just moved to Chicago from Los Angeles via New York, and we had known about each other, and we hadn't actually met, but he knew I wanted to go to this event, and he had the ticket. And I didn't think I'd ever get it. And about 3 days before I had to fly down to Jonesboro, Tennessee, we met, and he did give me his ticket. And I went down there, and I was overwhelmed by stories, and there were big circus tents, and 1,000 people, and 500 people were sitting there for 3 days listening to stories, and a lady was wearing a button, and her name was Peg O'Sullivan, and it said, ask me about Telebration. And so, of course, I did. And she told me about this event, and I said, I have to bring this back to Chicago. And I had 6 weeks to produce it. This was October, and Telebration is always the weekend before Thanksgiving. And I came back, and I hardly knew anyone in Chicago, and I live in Hyde Park, and I went in and out of different churches, and I said, do you have a space for us? We don't have any money, but this is really exciting. And I was put in touch with wonderful professional storytellers just by asking word of mouth who's in town and who's great. And they took a chance on me, and I believed their reputation and invited them to come on this evening in 1997. And they showed up, and 200 people showed up to listen to them tell stories. And we loved what we did so much that nobody wanted to say goodbye. We said, well, how can we keep this energy going? And somebody suggested, well, why don't we start a guild? And we did, and we had a sign-up sheet, and anybody who was interested in starting this guild showed up in that January of 1998, and we've been meeting for 6 years on the third Tuesday of every month at the Hyde Park Union Church. And it's open to anyone who wants to come, to listen to stories, to tell stories.
Oh, you tell stories at your meetings?
Oh, yes.
Oh, I'll come to the meetings.
Yeah, it's an opportunity for people to network and hone their craft and just find out what this thing called stories is all about.
All right, starting your craft and honing your craft, Emily, how did you start telling stories?
Well, I grew up in a family where everyone performed. You know, my mother loved to make a big dinner on Sunday and have people come over and say, you want to see what my kids can do? And my brother and sister were musicians, and she tried to encourage me to be musical, but it didn't work, so they started giving me poems to say. So I grew up always performing, and then I went to school and I studied acting and wanted to be an actress, and came to Chicago straight out of college, and then I was still sort of feeling like I hadn't found what I wanted to do, and I was working in a bookstore, and Glenda Zara Baker came in because she was teaching a residency on African American music, and she was looking for stories, and she invited me to hear her open for a concert where Jackie Torrance was performing. And I had never seen someone who was called a professional storyteller, and I said, that's what I'm supposed to do. So I got a grant from the Illinois Arts Council, and I studied with Shanta.
I know Shanta Nurala very well.
Right.
And that's when I started storytelling, and that's been about 13 years ago.
All right. And Emily Zara, I didn't know the Zara. She added a new name?
She's got a new
What
name
does
in there.
Zara mean?
When
We're going to
she
ask
comes,
her.
we're going to ask her.
Okay, well, I'll tell you, I'm so anxious to have you tell stories that I just want to repeat that the Telebration is the week before Thanksgiving. One day to...
It's on November 24th, the Sunday
November
before
24th.
Thanksgiving.
And it's the Sunday before Thanksgiving, and it's in Hyde Park at...
The Hyde Park Union Church at
Hyde Park.
5600 South Woodlawn.
And it's what time?
We're having a family day event for families and children from 2 to 5 p.m. And then at 6:30, an adult concert where we will have Emily and Glenda and many other wonderful storytellers, some who are your guests and have been your guests.
All right.
And so the adult concert, really storytelling for grown-ups at 6:30 till about 9:30, including musicians and wonderful, wonderful storytellers.
Okay, will there be refreshments?
Yes, there will.
Okay,
there
because
will be
if I'm going to
refreshments.
hang out a long time, I want to know where my
Yes,
next
during
meal is coming
intermission
from.
there will be refreshments, and there will also be books and tapes and videos of all the artists, and you're welcome to take a piece of them home with you.
Oh, very good. Oh, I can hardly wait. Well, I don't have to hardly wait. I can go fade to black. And then...
This story was inspired by a story that Shanta tells. It's called Miss Maybelle.
Miss Maybelle, you gonna talk about that strange woman?
Now, see, that was the problem. Everybody in the little town in the South that Miss Maybelle lived in was always calling her
Strange.
That's it. But Miss Maybelle wasn't strange. She just had her own way of doing things. Now, there were a lot of things about Miss Maybelle that made her stand out from everybody else. Probably the first thing that people noticed was that she lived in the South, and she wore gloves all the time. If she stepped out on the hottest of hot days in the middle of July, she had on gloves. She wore those gloves all the time. If she went walking in a sunshine yellow dress, you know she would have on some sunshine yellow gloves to match. If she went stepping in a sky blue suit, you know she had on some sky blue gloves to match. And if she found a mud cloth suit, you know she'd have on some mud cloth gloves to match. That's the way that she was all the time. Now, the people wondered about what was going on with those mysterious hands, but they still liked having her in their town because whatever she did with those hands was special. Now, see, Miss Maybelle, she could cook and she could sew. If the folks saw her on the way to the store to get the things she needed to make a pound cake, by the time the cake got out the oven, people would be lined up at her little table on the side of the road.
Yes. I hope you're not going to talk about that peach cobbler.
Peach cobbler! I would want to tell him, but I don't know the words for that part. No.
Just leave it alone.
Now,
leave
see,
it alone.
if the kids heard Miss Maybelle was making cookies, by the time the last bell rang, wouldn't be anybody left to hear it.
You know that.
Because you know they'd be lined up at the table. Now, you tell them about how she could sew.
Okay, well, now you know I got a new house and I wanted to get a quilt to go on my bed. I went to Miss Maybelle. I asked her if she would make me a quilt. Oh, that quilt was so beautiful. I hung it up on my wall and I charged people money to come in and look at it.
Just something about like this.
You know that?
It was beautiful.
Oh, that's right.
Now, see, the thing is, most people would come by, get what they wanted from Miss Maybelle, and keep on going. Nobody ever really stopped to talk to her. Till one day, there was a little girl named Addie. And pretty soon, Addie saw all that stuff, and she was asking questions, and before you know it, Addie and Miss Maybelle were talking and laughing and talking and laughing and talking and laughing until Miss Maybelle said, I am having such a good time talking to you. I sure do wish you would come by my house and visit me sometime. And Addie said, as soon as I get a chance, I'm going to do that. And that's just what she did. As soon as she got a chance, Addie was knocking on Miss Maybelle's door. Miss Maybelle opened the door. She had on a flowered housecoat and some flowered gloves to match. She told Addie to come inside and have some cookies and milk, and before you know it, they were talking and laughing and talking and laughing and talking and laughing until Addie said, you know, Miss Maybelle, the thing that I really wanted to ask you was, do you think you could teach me how to make something beautiful with my hands like all those beautiful things you make all the time? Miss Maybelle said, well, I don't know. I never tried to teach anybody how to do anything before. And he said, please. Miss Maybelle said, all right, but I'm going to have to tell you something very special, and you're going to have to promise to keep it to yourself.
Oh, I can keep it to myself.
You can?
I can.
All right. Miss Maybelle went back in the house and got some needle and thread and cloth because she was ready to teach Addie how to sew. But she couldn't do it with the gloves on. So Miss Maybelle put everything on the table, sat down, and took her gloves off.
Miss Maybelle, your hands, they're every color of the rainbow.
And she was right. Miss Maybelle's hands were red and orange and purple and green, and every single color you ever seen was mixed up all over those hands. She said, please, keep it to yourself.
Oh, I can keep it to myself.
All right. She got busy teaching Addie how to sew, and Addie got to thinking about how she was going to be the only one at school with this, only one at school with that. She didn't even notice how quickly the time was passing, but Miss Maybelle did. She saw the sun was getting ready to go down. She knew it was time for that child to go home. She put everything away, put on her pretty gloves, and told Addie it was time to go. She waved goodbye. Now, before Addie got halfway home, she ran to a whole bunch of her friends who were outside jumping double dutch. They said, girl, where you been all day? We was
I've been in Miss Maybelle's house.
You went up in that strange lady's house?
Oh, she's not strange at all. You should see all the pretty quilts she got in her house. And, ooh, you should see her hands. They're every color of the rainbow. Ooh! I said I wasn't gonna tell nobody, but I couldn't keep it to myself. Oh, I couldn't keep it to myself. Oh, I couldn't keep it to myself.
As soon as she let it out, those kids went to town, jumping double dutch and singing about
Miss Maybelle's hands are every color of the rainbow. Stomp, clap, clap, a stomp, clap, clap. Miss Maybelle's hands are every color of the rainbow. Stomp, clap, clap, a stomp, clap, clap. Miss Maybelle's hands are every color of the rainbow. Stomp, clap, clap, a stomp, clap, clap.
Now, it just so happens that one of their mothers was inside fixing dinner. Girl, do you know what I heard?
Girl, what you done heard now?
You know that strange woman, Maybelle?
I told you she was strange.
But she's stranger than we thought. I done found out the reason she got them gloves on all the time is because her hands are every color of the rainbow.
Ooh! Did you say every color of the rainbow? Now, when you say every color, do you mean all of the colors, including those iridescent ones?
Well, the way I heard it, everything is up on there.
Oh, well, what I want to know is, are they running straight across or up and down?
Well, you know, it could be polka dots. I need to find out.
Well, do tell, because you know I want to pass it on, right?
Yeah, now get it started. I'm going to get it right for you, okay? But get it started.
You know I'm going to get it started.
Yeah. So it happened that some of their brothers and fathers passed each other on the way home from work.
Ooh, you heard about Miss Maybell's hands?
She got some hands on her.
You know that? Miss Maybell's hands are every color of the rainbow.
Now the thing is, people talk, and you just never know who's gonna pick up on it.
You know that.
And pretty soon the birds got to singing about
Miss Maybell's hands are every color of the rainbow. Flap, clap, clap, a flap, clap, clap. Miss Maybell's hands are every color of the rainbow. Flap, clap, clap, a flap, clap, clap. Miss Maybell's hands are every color of the rainbow. Flap, clap, clap, a flap, clap, clap.
And the thing about the birds is that they fly through the air on the wind.
Miss Maybell's hands are every color of the rainbow.
And the thing about the wind is that you never know which way it's gonna blow. And that wind just kept on blowing and blowing and blowing till it blew all the way back to Miss Maybell
She
in her
said
kitchen.
she wasn't gonna tell nobody, but she couldn't keep it to herself. Oh no, she couldn't keep it to her. Oh no, she couldn't keep it to herself.
Miss Maybell sat in her house all day the first day, mad.
Said she wasn't gonna tell nobody.
All day the next day,
Couldn't
sad.
keep it to herself.
But you know, Miss Maybell was not really a sitting in the house kind of person, and after a couple days of that, she was ready to go. Besides, it was time for their county fair, and she'd been working all kinds of pretty things, so she put on a pretty suit, got on some pretty gloves, packed up her pretty things, and was on her way out the door when she heard somebody.
Miss Maybell? I reckon you heard something on the wind. And, well, Miss Maybell, I came to tell you that I was gonna keep my promise. See, it wasn't even my fault. It was my friend's fault. They made me tell them.
How did they make you tell the thing that you promised me you were going to keep to yourself?
Well, they did. They made me. See, well, okay, well, see, they wanted to know where I was, and I told them, and then they said you were strange, and I didn't want them to think about you as being strange, so I told them about your hands, but I guess I wasn't supposed to tell them that, huh? Ooh, I'm sorry, Miss Maybell.
I'm glad you came to tell me you're sorry. But you know, when I told you that about myself, I gave you a present. And then you took my present and you gave it away to the whole town. And I wasn't ready to give it away to the whole town. But I'm glad you came to tell me you're sorry. And now it's time to go to the fair. Let's go.
You still gonna let me go to the fair with you?
Didn't I say it's time to go? Let's go.
Oh, she gonna still let me go to the fair with her.
And so they started walking. And as they walked, they thought. Pretty soon Addie had something else to say.
Ooh, Miss Maybell, Miss Maybell, Miss Maybell. Ooh, Miss Maybell. You know, I've been thinking about your hands. I was even dreaming about them. I love all those colors, especially those iridescent ones. And I was wondering, why you hide them?
That's the way I've been doing it for about as long as I can remember.
You have?
Miss Maybell thought about it while she set up her table. She thought about it when the mayor came up and said, you know, you got so much pretty stuff on that table. I want you to say a few words to the people. Miss Maybell said, well, you know, I'm not really a speech-making kind of person. And the mayor said, just say a few words. And that's the way Miss Maybell found herself standing in front of all those people who for all those years had pointed at her and whispered about her. And when she looked out at those folks, the very first thing she did was to take off her gloves. And she said, you know, I've been wearing gloves for almost as long as I can remember. Way back when I was a real little girl, I used to have hands just like everybody else. But then I got to having these dreams, and every time I did something that I dreamed about, a color would show up on my hands, and it scared me, and it really scared everybody around me. So I decided I wasn't going to do anything I dreamed about. But you know what? Those dreams got to coming when I was awake, and when I was asleep, I couldn't get away from them. So I decided I was going to keep doing what I dreamed, and I was going to put on some gloves.
And that's the way that I've been doing it ever since. But you know, over all these years, I have learned some things. One of them is making gloves to go with all your clothes gets to be a lot of work. And the other one is that I'm sure I'm not the only one in this town who has something about them that's just a little bit different. And they've been working real hard to hide it away from everybody else. Well, I tell you what, I've decided I've been working too hard. I'm putting my gloves away. And I hope you put yours away too. And it makes me think about something my mama used to say when I was a real little girl, and I didn't understand it then, but I think I got it now. She used to say the reason we are here is because we are born to manifest the glory of God. So I hope you let your glory shine through. I'm gonna let mine shine. We are born to manifest the glory of God.
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 That is within us.
We are born to manifest the glory of God.
The glory of God.
The glory of God that is within
us. We are born to manifest the glory of God.
Born to manifest the glory of God
that is within us.
I have taken as my text neither this life nor the next, nor existence as it were when there were none. But I want to carry y'all to that point beyond recall, when existence were beginning to begun. In the middle of the void, where a vacuum was employed by a vacancy that's absent from a whole, full of nothing more or less than a lots of emptiness, there had never been a solitary soul. What was missing from the top took this unexpected drop, and long before it got to bottom, it was all gone. Since the outside wasn't there, when the inside went nowhere, the whole disappearance vanished from then on. And the Lord say, this ain't much. I was totally out of touch. I ain't got nowhere, so got nowhere to go. Ain't no one but me around, and I's never yet been found. This existence am a big Z-E-R-O. Seeing everything were hid, Lord say, something must be did. Reckon I'll get busy and create a bit. Let's see what to work on first. I knows what. The universe. Yeah, I'll need me lots of room for stuff to fit. Never being one to shuck, the Lord set himself to work. And in nothing flat had something swell designed. It had galaxies in place, each with its own cosmic space, operated by a universal mind. He had agencies like fate to control and regulate endless stores of time and space and energy, all vibrating with a force coming from a hidden source and developed from a secret recipe. All to which he set his hand, turned out fine as it were grand, and for every part he made a counterpart. There was certainty for doubt. Every in had some way out, and at every stop he put in one more start. 'Twas splendiferously vast, and he tended it should last him at least a full eternity or two. So the Lord had time arranged to take it all through constant change and replace what done growed old with what grew new. Then the Lord, he struck a spot, and he set it next to dark, and his whole creation come to life in light. And he said, that's good, not bad. And ain't there another to be had. And he guaranteed the works with all his might. Now, some complain it habits flaws, but I reckon that just 'cause they ain't never seen no universe before. So I was telling them and you, this one here gonna have to do, 'cause the Lord ain't promised us he'll show no more. Let me hear you say amen. Let me hear amen again. Amen. Let the whole church say amen. Amen. That's good. Now, you had the overview. Let's get down to me and you and how we come to this here neighborhood. Now, one way to tale am told, for the world got very old, the Lord looked it over and he said, ooh, boy, this world am a garden spot. Ain't a thing this world have not except someone like me around to share its joy. Then he scratch his head and say, I knows what, I'll take this clay and I'll fashion me a critter in my shape. Then and there, he laid the plan for the origin of man, although some say first he warmed up as an ape. Anyhow, mankind were got, and first plunked into the pot out of clay the Lord made sticky with his spit. Then he fitted with a soul, switches on the main control, and he gets so happy he said, this won't quit. Hello there, somebody new. Welcome home and how to do. I is your creator. You can call me Lord. Oh, yeah? Howdy, Lord. What gives? Well, the main thing am you lives and develops according to the plans I's drawed. I's chose Adam for your name. Adam. If it's all the same, could I have one with a more heroic sound? Hero? Where you get that stuff? Adam sound heroic enough. Hush and pay attention while I shows you around. I calls this place paradise. I's made all this critters twice, male and female. You can see how they abound. Running water and clear skies, plus plenty of supplies, 'cause I found a way to grow them out the ground. There's the moon, and that's the sun. They's what get the business done. It's too complicated to go into now, but when you put in some time and I's not so busy, I'm going to get with you and explain precisely how. Oh, there's more stars than you can count. I made an extra large amount 'cause they keeps the heavens looking nice at night. Plus, they got a special force keep the universe on course so it don't veer off to neither left nor right. Everything that I creates got a way it operates that don't take to too much meddling from outside. Leave things go their natural way, and if there's the chance to stray, 'cause I's always here to serve and be their guide. How much disposition pay? Disposition, did you say? Well, don't worry. You get more than what you's worth under any circumstance, else you wouldn't stand a chance of surviving on this here now planet Earth. Oh, yeah? What that's supposed to mean? Oh, that's right. You hasn't seen what can happen when I lets my nature go. Grab a hold of that big rock and get ready for a shock, 'cause I's fitting to put me on a little show. Then he dimmed the lights to doom, and the Lord makes thunder boom as the lightning flashes in with heavy rain. The volcano blows its stack, and the heavens seem to crack, and the wind whoops itself to a hurricane. This sounds some of my rough stuff. Shut it off, I've seen enough. Oh, no, little man. It's much too soon. You ain't caught the tidal wave or the avalanche, I'll say, for the earthquake that come after the typhoon. This get Adam so afraid, he go right clean out his head as the Lord runs wild and scowls and growls and howls, has conniptions and the shakes and a few big first-class quakes. Adam learns him and the earth has both got bowels. The Lord lets his nature rage about a quarter of an age till he finally say, whoa, I get scared away. But I turn my tempest off and go back to being soft soon as I done learned that Adam how to pray. I already knows how now, but you was raised in such a row, you ain't heard a thing that I've been trying to say. If you just shut off this star and make me comfortable and warm and tell me what you want done, I'll sure obey. So he learned to pray indeed. Pay attention and take heed of the wonders in this world the Lord done made, of the ways it works and blends, and the blessings the Lord says, and to say amen and thank you when he prayed. It was Adam and the Lord in harmonious accord, complimenting one another all the way. Lord, you sure knows how to plan. Adam, you am my main man. And their love became the order of the day. Once it's been agreed, we all have need to pray to the one who leads as life proceeds along the way. Once that's fully understood, that's when we's all set for good and love becomes the order of the day. Once we feel the force of great comfort in the dark and relate it to the source that lighted every living spark. Once we take the attitude that we owe some gratitude, then love becomes the order of the day. Much like the presence of faith in a prayer, love is the essence of creative care. Love needs to nourish, flower and flourish, treasure and cherish, and fully declare. Once we comprehend that the love to which we pray cannot ever end nor be diminished come what may. Once it finally comes to mind to return that loving kind, then love becomes the order of the day, of the day, of the day. Love becomes the order of the day.
People ask me, how do you find the stories that you tell? How do you remember them all? And it reminded me of a story. Once there was a very wise teacher who was walking along a riverbank with one of his students. And his student said to his teacher, "How come you always seem to know exactly the right story to tell to explain a very complicated piece of law?" And the teacher said, "I am going to answer your question with a story." Once, a long time ago, there was a nobleman, and the nobleman had a son who had just graduated from the military academy. And the nobleman's son had received a certificate in marksmanship. He was the best marksman in the entire military academy, and he was coming home to visit his father. As he rode on his big white horse through all the little villages, he came upon a small town, and what he saw there astonished him. He saw there, on the side of a barn, 100 perfect bullseyes. 100 perfect bullseyes, he thought. I got the certificate in marksmanship, and I could have never done that. I must meet the person who was this sharpshooter who shot these 100 perfect bullseyes. So he shouted from the top of his horse, "Please, please bring me the person who was this expert marksmanship. I must shake his hand." And a little boy came up to him and tugged his pant leg and said, "Oh, sir, no, no, no. You don't want to meet that person. That's Nar, the town fool." And the nobleman's son said, "I don't care if he's the town fool or whoever he is. I could have never done such a feat. Please bring him to me." And the little boy tugged his pant leg again. He said, "No, no, sir, you don't understand. You see, Nar didn't draw the circle first and then shoot.
He shot first, and then he drew the bullseye around the bullet hole. And so it is with me, the wise teacher said. I listen to many, many stories, and I read many, many stories. And then when that perfect story, just that story that I want to tell comes along, I create my perfect bullseye.
Aren't you glad you stayed with us through the show? And I have Trish Williams here with me, who is from Needles and Threads Quilters Guild. And I want her to talk about two of the quilts that we have here so that you get more detail. Trish?
This quilt here was created by one of our guild members, Sharon Matthews, who's a transplant from the Los Angeles Quilters Guild. This is what's called scrap quilting, because she used a lot of the different pieces that she had in her quilting stash. All quilters have stashes, and we hoard fabric big time. And as you can look at this piece of Sharon's, you can see she used a variety of different colors to create her wonderful jewel tone quilt. The quilt over here is a quilt of my own, and it's inspired by my love of dance. I'm a frustrated two left feet kind of dancer, and so I put all of my dreams and desires in this piece, and my love of old dance, the Nicholas Brothers, Hines and Dad, Catherine Dunham, just Judith Jamerson, a lot of people that I grew up watching dance. And this quilt was inspired after spending time with our raffle quilt that we showcased at our 10th anniversary. And I like machine quilting, so everything I do is machine quilted, except for a few hand embellished pieces.
And this is applique, this work?
I got applique, raw edge applique. When you see fraying, that's called raw edge applique. Here I satin stitch applique with a variegated thread.
All right, how do you get the locks on this?
Those are satin stitches.
Okay.
And that represents Savion Glover, who's carrying on the new regime of dance. I even use my computer with photo transferring.
Okay.
So if you look, I've got pictures of some of those people that I'm talking about. Savion's down there, Judith Jamerson, Cap Calloway, you know. And this represents Cap Calloway up in here. And I tried my little hand at writing some too. Again, this was done on my computer. The computer has become a very big part of quilting.
All right. How long have you belonged to the Needles and Threads Quilters Guild?
Since 1998 was my first time joining, and I've been quilting since 1997.
Is that right?
So found the book, The Communion of the Spirits, and started looking for needles and thread. And
all right.
Ran up upon them the following year.
And you said this was therapy for you?
It is. It is. When I have a bad day at work or a bad day period, I go home and I create something pretty.
All
you
right.
know, I come in the door looking for fabrics and ideas.
Can you count how many quilts you might have done by this time, since '98?
I think at least 100. I'm sure.
100?
Yes, yes. I'm one of those people that is obsessed with my quilting. I spend a lot of my time doing what I love, and this is what I love to do.
And about how long does it take?
It depends, you know, on how. This quilt here was the longest project I've ever done.
Okay.
Because I kept trying to visualize it. Sometimes I can visualize an image and do it right away. And other times I was trying to create images that fit the little point.
All right. Thank you, Trish.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.